For 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And when I say only, trust me, they're the only one. Founder Glenn Story and his team have been great supporters of this show, which is why I am proud to partner with them. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, giving you the ability to access all three major networks, which means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to without funding the left. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're sending the message that you support free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, Second Amendment, and our military veterans and first responders. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team makes switching easy. So easy, I did it. I kept my number. You can keep your phone, or you can upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Jason or call 972-PATRIOT. Get free activation when you use the offer code JASON. Join me. Make the switch today. patriotmobile.com/Jason. That's patriotmobile.com/Jason or call 972-PATRIOT.
Yeah, 모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
Steve, I've got an awesome topic for us to dissect today. James Jones and Austin Rivers have been going back and forth all week. Austin Rivers recorded something on Friday that he put out on video, but let me give you a little context. I believe Austin Rivers last week, maybe on Tuesday, went on Pat McAfee's show and said, man, there's about 30 NBA players who could play in the NFL, and that's just not true. NFL players couldn't be basketball players. And then James Jones, the former Green Bay Packers, Austin Rivers, of course, former NBA player, his dad is Doc Rivers. James Jones then responds. He's on on Speak on the FS1 show. James Jones, a former Green Bay Packers wide receiver. I had an 8-year NFL career, something along those lines. Had a solid NFL career playing with Aaron Rodgers. Playing with Aaron Rodgers. Anyway, I want to skip to everybody's heard about what Austin Rivers said about the 30 players, blah, blah, blah. Let's skip to James Jones's initial response of him pushing back against Austin Rivers. Let's play that.
Let's just get this straight. Number one, they put in a flop rule in the NBA because you guys are soft.
Oh, no. Oh, God. See, now you guys started.
You guys started a trend of rest games. That's what y'all started. And now y'all want extra votes and all that type of stuff to win the MVP because you only play 22 games out of 82. Y'all started that. So y'all all start. Number two, you said 30 dudes. If you would have said one dude, maybe Anthony Edwards could play safety or something, I'd have listened to you or something like that. You said 30 dudes. No. Number one, put respect on our sport. That's number one. It is not just run and catch the ball and turn around. It ain't just hand the ball off and do that. It takes a lot of work at your craft to do what we do on the football field. And Austin Rivers, if you stepped on the football field, homeboy, you wouldn't make it. We know that right now because you barely made it in the NBA. And I'm just keeping it a buck. Football is not an easy game, dog. That's why a lot of football players, basketball players that stepped on the football field, step right back on the basketball court because it's not an easy game. It's a lot that goes into the NFL. And you're not about to walk into the NFL and think you're just about to catch and turn around. Try again, homeboy. Do your research on the NFL, man. Watch some football games, old games, new games, whatever you want to watch, and catch up on it, man, because 30 dudes in the NFL and the NBA ain't doing that, homeboy.
Drop the mic. And so, Steve, Austin Rivers, in a since-deleted video, he responded. He put out a video. He put it out over Twitter. Now he's deleted the video, but we actually have the excerpts from that video where he said, James Jones, I saw your comments. I'm going to make this video. This is my last response with you, man. Then, quite frankly, I'm done with this. I just don't have time for these shenanigans with you, man. You're an idiot, and I can't blame you for thinking what you think, trying to throw out some clickbait BS such as yourself. I don't understand where you're getting off. And then I think at one point he basically compared paychecks. I don't even know who you are. So this is kind of silly. We're only here in the first place because you got offended that I said there are a handful of NBA players that could make the transition over to the NFL. So for you to even be offended by that, that's on you. The truth hurts. And then to take it a step further and try to come at me personally, You could never play in the NFL. And he's quoting James Jones. I never said I could. That's what Austin Rivers. And then for you to try to come on my career, come at me about my career, which has nothing to do with my comments, is kind of silly. And it's even more silly coming from you, considering you were a role player as well in your career. Nothing supersonic in the NFL career stands out for you, for real, for real. Then it started comparing paychecks. Whose side are you on, Steve?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Who threw out the clickbait? Pot, meat, kettle? And first of all, James Jones was more than just a role player. He was part of a really good receiving corps at Green Bay. Him, Jordy Nelson, and your old colleague Greg Jennings. And I always remember James Jones was like the only guy in the NFL to wear a hoodie under his pads. I always thought that was interesting, but that was like his thing. But he was a good player. To think that he was just a reserve or a backup, that's not true. I'm just going to put it to you like this. As someone that admires both sports, but is much more of a football fan now, I do know this. There's a lot of football players that if they were 3 inches taller, a little bit longer, had longer arms, they would have chosen basketball. But instead of growing to be about 6'6", 6'7", they all became 6'2", so they had to play their game on the gridiron on grass. And I'll just put it to you like this. There's a lot of basketball players that would try to play football and would quit after one day. Okay, because they wouldn't be tough enough. It's the physical grinding, it's the pounding, it's the viciousness, it's the violence, even in today's football. Now, there's a lot of football players that would try to play basketball that would have a hard time finishing around the rim, probably couldn't even get their shot off, but they'd be okay with the physicality. They'd keep coming back and having fun. I think that's the difference. If you took 30 of your best athletes who were willing to cross over and you said, okay, you got to go through a 6-week training camp here. My view is this. There'd be a lot more football players at the end of a football camp than vice versa.
Slightly going to disagree with you because they've made football so easy now. Sundays would be the problem. Sundays, when they actually got to play football and got hit, a lot of these guys wouldn't have the heart for it. I agree with you completely. Take 6'5" Tony Gonzalez. If he were 6'8", 6'9", he would have had a long NBA career. Yeah. And would have chosen the NBA. Terrell Owens, if he were 6'7", he'd probably have been in the NBA because he was a pretty good basketball player as well. So a lot of this just has to do with, he says, genetics and length. I do think, and what Austin Rivers is tapping into is like, hey, look, a lot of guys, basketball players, guy I grew up with and played basketball at Ball State, Paris McCurdy. He got signed in the NBA and in the NFL, had a chance to make it with the Denver Broncos, didn't as a tight end. So there's been several basketball players that were able to play tight end in the NFL. But it's not like there's a bunch of basketball players that have been playing offensive guard, offensive tackle, defensive end, corner, or any of these other positions. So Austin Rivers is a bit out over his skis. At one point, he ended it by saying, I know you don't want to talk numbers, because basically saying I made more money than you. And that's true. He made $56 million, but that has nothing to do with Austin Rivers and just the economics of 15 guys on a basketball team, and basketball being an international sport where there's just more money circulating for the players. It's not like Austin Rivers was not a better basketball player than James Jones was a football player. That's why I side with James Jones.
Jason, let me push back on your pushback. Okay, today's football is a lot less violent. There's not as much contact, right? But I'll say this. Yeah. Today's NBA player is a lot softer. I mean, it goes both ways. Was there a time that I thought guys like Anthony Mason, Rick Mahorn, guys of that nature, Larry Johnson, that I said, oh, man, those guys are like football players with basketball skills? Yes. There were a lot of guys like that had a certain tenacity and a violent mindset. I thought that could carry over. How many guys in today's NBA are like an Anthony Mason or a Charles Oakley? How many? Be honest.
Not many.
I mean, and these guys can't even handle hand checking. Okay, maybe him. Aaron Gordon, I like his game. He's a scrapper. He seems like a tough guy. But if you look at the games in the 90s, even the little guys like Calvin Murphy, who could really fight, that's one guy you did not want to tangle with because he could throw hands. Byron Scott was always a tough guy. Those are the guys I say, you have a mindset. You're kind of a kamikaze. You'd actually play football. Charles Barkley had the funniest story about his one day at high school football practice. He said after the practice, everyone was hitting him in 18 directions. He said, there's no way in hell I'm getting back out here. He absolutely had the football body. He did not have the mindset. I think football is a game. And you've been in a locker room and you look at like your teammates, especially the ones that are really into football, they go into some deep, dark places mentally because they realize I'm going to hurdle my body into other men and I'm going to shorten my life. Every time you play football, it's like boxing. I think you actually shorten your lifespan. Maybe not by a lot all the time, but there are certain instances where you're going to alter your life 20, 30 years down the line. You don't feel it the next day. You don't feel it in a week from now. But one day you wake up out of bed and you go, gee, what in the world did I do? Okay? That's the reality. There's a reason why football is played once a week for the most part. And while basketball can almost be played every other day, and to James Jones's point, these guys still want days off. Says it all to me.
You make a great point because Mid-American Conference football, that's as far as I went. Every Sunday after we played on Saturday, it felt like, hey, man, I was just in a car wreck. And It wasn't until Tuesday that I actually felt halfway normal. And that's Mid-American Conference football. I can imagine what it's like in the NFL. And do NBA players want to go through that? Unlikely. Thank you, Steve. Great job. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment of Fearless.